Quin, the bench was amazing tonight. Can you talk about just how clutch they were? Not so much just with the 54 points, but just in the gut of the game with getting stops and igniting you in the third and fourth quarters.
I think, the underlying thing with that is that those guys were kind of unusually connected to one another during the course of the game, and that mental focus and, frankly, the communication that was occurring is not something you generally see, right away. And what it tells you, is not only are the guys that, whether they're starters or whatnot, are they kind of thirsty and open to that? But the guys that are coming into the game, are willing and ready for that. And, that connectivity has a way of, raising everybody's level. And you saw it late. We were finishing with, a compilation of guys at various times, and obviously that was impacted in some degree by what happened to Veet and what happened to Larry. But that aside, that group pulled together.
Piggybacking on that, what adjustments did you guys make on how you were guarding Banchero and also Wagner? Because it seemed like you made some adjustments to be able to slow them down to go to the game.
I think, sometimes there's, we talk a lot about adjustments, and certainly that's the case. Sometimes those things are really subtle, where you're trying to get somebody to go a different direction, so the rotation can look a different way. You're up a little higher in a pick and roll situation. You're not helping quite as far off the corner, where we gave up some clean looks from three. So some of it's just as the game goes on and evolves, that you're doing the things that you set out to do and forming the game plan better. And then there's always, certain things. I'm not going to sit up here and talk about, all of those things. And oftentimes, if there is something, sometimes it's really subtle, and sometimes the player does it. So over the course of the game, you have an opportunity, to do that, particularly when a group of players kind of believe in each other and believe in the coaching staff, and they don't point to a coverage as much as they do the execution within a coverage. And then obviously, if need be, if a player's, got it going, if we're going to be switching, we want to take the ball out of his hands, and particularly with those guys with Banchero and Wagner, that's something that, they command those double teams oftentimes, especially late.
Coach, this was a very physical game in a lot of different ways. We saw how it resulted in some players having to leave the game a little bit early. I mean, how would you say this team responded to that? We saw positive in terms of them pulling out the game, but just how do you think they handled it?
Yeah, I think there's different types of physicality. When players are in the air and they're not able to protect themselves, that's dangerous. And you understand that a game's going to be physical, but as I said, there's lines there where it's unfortunate, that what happened to Veet, and we had a couple other fouls where, in transition, and that's going to happen. Guys are going to try to make plays on the ball, and when you see the film, oftentimes it's not necessarily, a hard foul is different than other, and it's hard to determine that. But certainly those are things that everybody wants to guard against. We don't want to do that, and they don't want to do that, and that's different than a team just playing a physical brand of basketball, which clearly they do, and we need to do that tonight. I thought our guys responded to that.
I mean, earlier there was the situation with Mo and Goga, and how did Mo handle that or not handle that the way that you would want a team?
I think, again, overarching situations, there's going to be, anytime there's an intensity level and competitiveness, that you're going to find those situations, and, both teams are going to respond in a certain way, and you want that, but you also want teams to be able to kind of refocus and continue to compete, and I thought that was the case.
Coach, Trey has been named to be All-Star game out in Golden State. Talk a little bit about his leadership with the Hawks and just being able to go out there and represent the brand.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about a brand, and I don't want to talk about DNA, and I don't want to talk about culture. I want to talk about this team, you know, coming together and playing together, and Trey, you know, in that situation being a catalyst for that. And I think that's something he's done throughout the course of the year. I also don't see that as a sacrifice. I see that as evolution and growth of a player, and I'm really glad that Trey, you know, is rewarded in this situation for doing those things. You know, he's got, you know, there's numbers you can point to, and they're real. But in my mind, you know, the way that he played tonight is emblematic of the things that he's done this year. And, you know, ironically, that happened, you know, today. And I think that should be affirming both for him, you know, and for our group and for our team. That's really, really good to see.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Okay.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.